So Jillian has to repeat everything she said all the way. Yeah, Jillian, you have to go through that all again. Thanks. Does anybody have any questions for Jillian?
Did everybody hear me? I'm on my phone because my laptop, I guess, I don't know, something was wrong with it.
I think we heard you okay. Yeah.
I don't think I have any questions.
I do. What are in SAFER? What is the acronym again? Can you repeat
Yeah,
it?
sure. So SAFER stands for stabilize, acknowledge the crisis, and then facilitate understanding, encourage effective coping, and then recovery and referral. That's what that stands for.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions that you guys have that I can answer?
Thanks, Jillian. Appreciate it. You can go back to watching TV.
I actually have a dog with me. So we're
I
gonna-
know, we noticed.
All right. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
All right, thanks.
Jillian.
All right, Stefan, you're up.
Can you hear me first of all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. So building off what Jillian said, and the department has made a great investment in the peer-to-peer counseling because, again, as Jillian pointed out on several different points, the staff feels comfortable talking with their peers, and there's a real value in that. And she also did point out that she's part of a team which is, responds to the regional area. But what we found out was we were looking to build upon that. And when we had the incident where Officer McGain was shot, we had a large group of people who were impacted. So we tried to find a fit, if you will, that would help us to address larger group concerns. And so I'm gonna have to read this because I apologize because it's a mouthful. So right afterwards, I had to reach out to St. Louis County to see if they had any resources. And there actually is a regional resource. And it is referred to as, and the organization is called the Greater Regional Critical Incident Stress Management Association. And they actually have a critical incident team, which is really designed for these type of incidents. The team consists of first responders, and that's all of us: fire, police, EMS. It's really encompassing, but it also includes chaplains, medical field, doctors, nurses, and then mental health professionals. And they're all volunteers. They're all well vetted because I'm sure, as you've seen, anytime there's a critical incident, whether it involves officers being killed in line of duty or shot, firefighters being injured. Yesterday is a perfect example. The community comes together and there's overwhelming push to try to support and offer resources. And that's not the time we really need to be filtering it out. So this critical incident team is great because they come in and do a critical debriefing. So we brought them in, and basically it's as simple as this, and this is the great thing. When you're going through this incident, the last thing you want to do is try to, make phone calls and who am I going to bring in? It's a one phone call approach. I contacted the organization. They said, great, we'll call you back. They activated their team based off of our incident. They brought in first responders. And the thing is, all the volunteers, first responders who participate in this have all gone through some form of critical incident. So they have the tools built in to come and help those officers because they've already processed it. So basically all we did was provide them the building. In fact, the room you're using right now is where we had our first meeting. And the initial meeting was for only the officers and staff who were present that night, which was fantastic. Building off a little bit what Jillian said, bringing the group in as a whole alleviated or broke down some of those built up stigmas that we have about mental health because they're surrounded by the people they trust. Just as a note, I brought everybody in the room and I was kicked out because I wasn't part of this discussion and what they wanted to have. So we did kind of an audit afterwards, and every single officer, every single staff member who participated said it was the best option we could have provided them because they walked out feeling like they had a chance to express what they felt. Now, here's a great thing. The organization said, okay, great, let's expand it. Who was there that night that wasn't part of the West Rose Police Department? So we expanded. We brought in dispatchers, firefighters, or at least we made it available to them. Dispatchers, firefighters, and other agencies who responded as well. We had several agencies, well over 50 officers responded that night trying to help out. And so they were all given the opportunity to respond. And again, the great thing about this is, again, building off what Jillian said, is it's an option for, or an opportunity for them to express themselves, but I don't get a report at the end unless somebody is at risk. If there's someone who's considering suicide, self-harm, things like that, then we're notified. Otherwise, I simply get a phone call back from the person who is responsible for setting up the debriefing and letting me know it went well. And I have to say, I did not have one negative report back from those who participated. And after talking with Chief Curtis, we now implement the team's response as an element of our response to a critical incident. And what's great is this is a regional team, so they have resources. It costs me nothing. I'm getting the best people possible. We've got training, we've got experience, and we have an excellent track record. So I'm, if I sound like I'm a little bit of a cheerleader for them, I am, because they really came in and my staff came out of the experience saying nothing but great things about it. Can I answer any questions? Understanding I didn't sit in the actual process, but I did coordinate it. So I can try to answer some of the questions if you have any. Okay,
I think we're good. I think we're good, Stephen. Thanks.
thank you, Chief.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
No problem.
That's great information.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Really reassuring.
it is
You
really.
know, you've got that program.
Yes, I mean, just anecdotally, you know, I was called yesterday by the school system in St. Louis City, and I thought, you know, I'm an individual therapist, and I'm sure that person was getting a lot of advice on who to call, but you know, an individual therapist is not who can help in a critical incident. Like, you need a team of people like this coming in and converging on the school and the community there. And so I think that's awesome. And, you know, like behavioral health responses, who I would recommend it. So anyway, just interesting.
Can I ask just curiosity question? For example, if I can refer an impaired physician, perhaps that's struggling with alcohol or what have you, to a outside organization that can go through a course of treatment and get, in a way, a certification that they've completed that, to be part of a file that's separate outside of the institution for which they work, the hospital system. And that will then serve as a means to state they've been in good faith sought treatment and to help work through some of their impairments, and that will also serve as an intermediary between the Board of Healing Arts and also future issues if they ever come up, to maintain their certification as a physician. I didn't know if there was a similar process or situation for a police officer. Is there similar concept that they have to maintain their certification in a sense as a police officer, that they would want to have gone through a protocol or a program?
There really isn't an established body or a process for that specific thing you're talking about, but unfortunately, it's kind of left to each agency. I mean, to coordinate with posts. We're supposed to report any issues to posts on that, but I'll just use an example. Fortunately, it really comes up, and this has been a number of years ago. We had an officer who was having, we believe he's having some mental health issue. That's one of the functions that we do for the EAP. We did you can make it mandatory, which we did if you have a good reason for it, but it's strictly confidential. Send them to the EAP. They have psychologists and counselors, and said, you can tell this is what we suspect, this is what the problems are. If you could deal with this, and then they had to be cleared through them to come back to work, which goes in the HR file. I can't even tell you what the results are. I don't know, it's confidential. So if there were issues were to come up again, or if we needed to report something to post, we would have the documentation show that the officer did go through that process, was cleared to come back to duty, and that he had done what he needed to do to keep a certification, And if there were any future problems, then obviously they have to go through post to show the document that they had been an issue, and if it came back up again, probably was not a person who should be in law enforcement, but there's no statutory requirements or any kind of established program that mandates that departments do that.
Yeah.
Doesn't the Webster Groves Department, you have a higher level of certification? I remember reading about it last year. That was a pretty rigorous process. So
Well,
are there higher
our credit, we are in
requirements?
there's different levels of accreditation for CLE. We're in the top tier of that, so that really is more policy oriented, but that's part of one of those things. If you're in the lower level of CLE, you don't necessarily have to have those kind of programs, but if you're in the upper tier, it's kind of things I'm talking about, there's a department you do have to have in place.
Is there anything you wish you had that you don't?
It would be a nice thing to have what you're talking about, and that is in terms of being able to provide a kind of a group physician, number one, and then also the ability to have a wellness check through that process somehow. But again, those are budgetary things, and
Right.
we actually have, it's been a while, we have looked at doing something like similar to that. Like I said, with making sure that people have their vaccines and proper medication, all those kind of things. It's fairly expensive proposition to do that.
Do some police departments have like
A large department, like, St. Louis City and St. Louis County have a large enough organization where they have some of those kind of arrangements and actually have some people that are on staff, but departments our size, I don't really know of any other ones that actually do that.
Do other cities ever have the smaller police departments will sort of form a consortium to be able to get that kind of?
There's none that I'm aware of. There's Slate, which is they provide health benefits and insurance benefits and those kind of things. That there's several cities in Webster that do have scalable economy for costs, but nothing that I'm aware of on lines of wellness.
Well, thanks, Chief. That
Thank
was
you.
good. That was good information. All right, so moving on to updates from board members and subcommittees. I'll speak for the nominating committee, which myself, Scott, Centron, we convened over the weekend and we have a direction and we're taking some steps and we'll have more next month. Yeah, so. All right, so communications subcommittee.
We met a couple times over Google Meet or Zoom or whatever we could manage to get to work, right? And so we collaborated on a document and we focused initially on how can we get some content for the website to update it because it's still referencing, the initial forming of the ordinance. So that's what I sent around in the Word document. And there are still areas where there are questions to answer. But then the rest of it, I think, is more reflection and review from the board. And then we didn't know, is there some other reviewing party that has to look at it before we would put it up? I would presume it would go to Jen Starkey once it was approved. So Chief
You
Price,
want
could
to
you
put
put
that
that
up?
up?
Let me do a share screen, even though we don't have anybody on. We don't have any attendees. I think we're okay. Just do the document.
Oh, we have Dr. Scott though.
Well, that's right.
And she's part of our committee. Sorry.
I will try and get it on, but I'm not sure that I can. It's
Oh.
it's not
to
in
be
my
able to-
actual files, in my email, it's not gonna show up.
I thought I saw it on the far left on the second row.
Yep, far left.
Yeah.
There it is.
There you go.
Right.
Yay. Dr. Scott, can you see it?
can see it.
Awesome. So we've never all met at the same time. I met with Dr. Scott and we had a good conversation and talked about sort of general direction, but I didn't have actual copy. And then Sloan and John and I met and we wordsmithed and we identified questions. So the first two paragraphs are taken almost verbatim from the ordinance itself. We didn't want to mess around with what the purpose was. We just broke it up to make it a little more readable. The third paragraph is my creation because I think communication is really important and it's not just us talking to the community, it's the community being comfortable talking to us and sharing to us and helping us learn and understand. So I'm happy to have that wordsmith, however people feel comfortable. And then this next part, again, taken from the ordinance, cherry picking some bullet points from it. And so because it's not, all continuous, this is something that I want the board to look at and say, do you feel that it's true to the intent of the ordinance? And then the intention is that we would link to the full ordinance below. And then we talked about how can people reach us and share with us. Some of our conversation was around there might be people that just want to share information anonymously. And so a forum can actually be a really low threshold way for someone to reach out. And so it could be as simple as having, a form that says, please share your ideas or concerns and questions. And we could have a field that someone can type in. I would recommend we put some kind of character limit on it so you don't have long rambles. And then have a line that says if you want a response, provide your phone or email, and then have fields to put those items. We also said really important above the form is that this is not for use with urgent matters. So if you have an urgent question or situation, call 911 or the non-emergency number. I would look to, public safety folks to tell us how to phrase that properly. And then when someone fills out a form, generally you get a message that says it's submitted. So we wanted to say, thanks, you'll get a response in, and we have to decide how many days. And this is where the big question is, so what happens then if someone does submit a question via a form? Or we also, John, you really felt that it was an email would be helpful. And I think there are a lot of people that are more comfortable with email. So a generic email, if we can get that. And I know there was a cost. So I don't know how we
Right,
decide to move forward with that, but
For the PCEB to have a general email then.
yes,
Right.
yeah. So we would like to have both the form and that email.
I don't speaking of it, I don't think it could be that expensive, and we do have a budget.
My
now, so-
recollection from Jen or someone I heard, I was thinking it was like maybe a couple $100.
That's what she said, it was like
Okay.
$20.
Yeah, so if we think that that's a good use of the budget we have.
And then once you have that email, like you will have it perpetually, so it's
Right,
like,
and it's not tied to any one
Right.
number, which is the beauty of it, that history is always there, I know that the sunshine law compliance is always,
Right.
an objective for us, so that would be a nice way to ensure that
yeah.
we don't lose any.
I think
records.
that we've been talking about this for so long.
We just
that
need to do it. So that's just kind of a yellow highlight. We do have to talk about what is that process. But we could go down because we're almost done. the end of what we thought about for the webpage. Then we wanted a section about membership. And we said the PCEB has 9 members with no fewer than 6 residents, as well as an owner of a business in Webster Groves, a Webster Groves School District representative, a Webster University representative, and a doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, or other specialist in mental health. In addition, PCEB has non-voting members, a youth liaison who's a junior or senior high school student who resides in Webster Groves, a city council liaison, and the chief of police or designee as ex officio member. So that's just all from the ordinance, and then we thought we would get the list of names and roles. Initially, I was, I always dream big. I had this whole spreadsheet, and people, if they wanted to have a little personal introduction about why they serve, and so we can still do that. I put in a plug for maybe we can add it later, but I just really want to get our member roster on the website.
I think so
that's
too. I
important
think
that
it
we're
facilitates communication.
Yeah.
Who do you want to communicate with? Just a name, or do you want to have like kind of a little background and it humanizes that process if you're reaching out?
I think so, and we could also look into getting photos. So I could put together a little box in that same Google Drive and if we want to upload photos. But I think that we could probably, if we get the copy approved, move forward with just listing members for now. So that would be the next thing. We'd list again the generic email, and then upcoming events. And these were just more notes of like, let's commit to listing events like Public Safety Day. We'll have to figure that out, and that's something the communications committee can work on. We had some ideas about agenda and minutes. I think that's really important. I think the public records request feels like kind of a sidebar item, and maybe it could move over to the left rail. The statement of
So
commendation
you
on
could-
use of force.
You could, we talk about a cyber, you could direct them to the city clerk, because that's, excuse me, that's where all the open records requests to go to anyhow. So she handles those, Katie, the city clerk. So if you just basically maybe had a link directing them to her, or email directing her to her, she handles all the open records requests and gets the documents.
Oh, this was what it directs to now is an online form. And so whatever
That
is.
That goes to,
You fill out the online form and it goes directly to
goes to
Katie.
her.
So is
And
it
then she
best
determines
to have the
your
form
member,
and maybe list
whatever
Katie's
department.
name and phone number if there's questions?
She probably would just want you to do the form.
Just the
form.
form. Okay,
Yeah.
well then, we'll keep it exactly as it is. I was thinking since we're gonna have a lot more content in the main part, maybe that could be a sidebar. And then, we had ideas for future enhancements that we can work on. FAQs, especially as we start to have more conversations amongst ourselves, like the presentation today. I learned so much, and I think that there would be others in the community that will feel safer knowing that our police department has access to resources that help them, maintain their mental health. So we could have a series of questions and answers. If we got an anonymous question or concern through the website and we thought it was important enough that we wanted to, publicly respond to it, it could become an FAQ. And then the calendar. So we don't have the calendar figured out. I haven't talked to Jen about the physical system, but she's assured me they have one and they differentiate between events that are for our internal planning purposes. So like if we wanted to set deadlines for planning the listening town hall, or public ones. And I just bulleted out some of the significant public meetings that we might want to include on there. And perhaps we need to start reaching out to some other organizations in the community to ask for their ideas about what are events that would be meaningful for us to attend. So that's just brainstorming at that point.
Yeah, great work.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Do you think Jen would be able to do the email?
Just as a suggestion, this is a kind of unique experience as far as the board's having a budget, but I think what you would need to do is just take a vote that that's what you want to do up to a certain amount. And then I can pass it on to Jen and we'll make it happen.
Do we know what our budget is?
You have $1,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll just blow it all.
So up to what amount do we feel like is reasonable? And again, I think this is, I like this. I think it's worth some investment because we've been talking about it for a long time and it goes on after we are all gone. So,
And it's a one-time cost.
right.
Move that we spend up to $250.
I was thinking about that too. And if it's more than that, we can, you
Can
know,
we just
talk
go
about
for 300? Because I thought you said that.
300.
Well, that way we don't have to come back and rethink it again.
I think she said 300.
One time for sure. I just can't remember. if
It's
she
not
said
the
two or
email.
She said choose something, but if you, my suggestion would be, I'd say vote up to 300 and then that way, if you're comfortable with that number, which sounds like you would be, that's.
Make a motion to,
Okay, do we?
as a budgetary expense,
Okay,
$300, up to $300 for a email.
Are you making that motion?
Yes.
Okay, I second, yeah.
We're bracing.
All right,
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
So do we want to go back? And I don't want to use up all of our time to talk a little bit about what we as a board feel the process should be for responding to any questions that we might get. I know Chief Curtis, you have pretty much been tasked with that for the most part.
Most of the time it's something for the PCB has been directed to me. I mean, I have no issue, no problem if you want in your email, if you want to have it directed to someone and then maybe the chairperson check the box. I mean, that's not an issue with me. The only thing I would be careful about it is again, I wouldn't encourage people if they have what they have as a complaint, say use of force complaint or something of that nature. Really something that needs to be directed to the department. I have no problem discussing it and being transparent in one of the meetings, but it's not the board's
Yeah.
function
Right,
to address those.
my thought, I have a couple different thoughts. One is, I think that an email needs to be acknowledged, and that just means we received it, thank you. And for the most part, I don't think, because we operate as a committee and not individually, I don't think we can really truly answer anything until after our next meeting where we would have a chance to discuss it. Do you guys agree with that?
Well, if a community member send in, it should be answered as quickly as possible. You know, so, but you have to determine, is it for you to answer, or is it for the chief to answer, or the city manager?
I wonder about just the initial polite, sort of like we received it, thank you so much, more will be coming, and then.
That can be automatic. That can be automatic.
Automatically, yes. And Katie can help you, with that, just like any email that you receive, it can go straight to Katie. And Katie will make sure that you get it, but she'll respond, this has been received, and someone will be getting back with you soon. You really want to be careful not to answer or promise something that you can't deliver.
Yes, that makes sense. Accenture, you have a,
Yeah, first of all, sorry I'm late. But I think that if I send them an email with an expectation, like for example, tomorrow, and the next board meeting is 20 some odd days from now, then that my perspective on the value of me sending an email to this committee that I have to wait up to 30 days to get a response from would probably not encourage me to do so again or encourage others to do so.
I agree with that. So,
Could. I don't want to volunteer y'all, but could the communications committee agree that they could review those and make an assessment of, okay, this is a pretty simple request, and we could come up with a recommendation of here's how we want to reply. Is there, how might we have, just a second set of eyes from outside of the committee look at that and sign off? Maybe the chair, or maybe Chief Curtis in the chair. I want us to stay in our lane, but I also
Yeah, I
want
can
us
see
to
that.
be
That's-
responsive.
That's where my head was, is that this committee could kind of vet it and kind of say, hey, here's a potential response, and we think we could draft something and then do something via email or with this group, to your point, to get back soon, but then no one gets blindsided. Oh, we didn't talk to you about this. So, you know, there's a way that you check off on it within some number of days. It's
Yeah, what number of days? I mean, I was thinking like 5 to 10 business days, 5 to 7 days.
I would tell you that our goal is to be responsive on the same day and no later than the day after.
Yes.
But do you guys think, I mean, I'll say just from me sending out emails to this group
We
is
don't.
not always very responsive
No,
to
yeah,
email.
I don't think
So
that
that's,
next day is
Yeah.
feasible for us. And I think we need to be upfront with what's gonna happen with this form in the email is
Yeah.
that we're a board that meets once a month. We're a committee that's a volunteer,
yeah,
and we'll get back to you in, we could say 3 to 5 business days. Is that, I want to feel like we're responsive.
The automatic reply that they get could say, hey, here are one of 4 options that it could happen relative to your emails, like, we'll get back to you right away. We're gonna defer this to the next meeting of the board, which is 20 whatever a month. This is a technical issue for research. I mean, whatever it is, we can kind of give ourselves a few get out of jail free cards to kind of just like let them know that depending on how it categorizes, in our view, determines if we gotta get back tomorrow or if we can lag till the agendas. Right.
It could even be not an automated message, but after that review, we could look at it, and say, well, this is a pretty substantial and
Priority.
serious question, and we need to refer it to others. So maybe the response is, we're taking your input very seriously. We want to confer with, be upfront about what the process is.
Yeah, that's gonna, and let them know.
I'll just say it once again, be very careful, I don't send a email to a resident unless I run it by Katie to make sure who it all going to impact. If it impact chief, or planning, or whatever, to make sure everything is in order. Because once I start sending an email out, they're gonna send me an email back, and then pretty soon I know I'm down a hole I can't get out of. So and Katie, I think she has the overall knowledge of where it should be directed and how it should be answered. So I'll be very careful trying to answer it out of this committee to the resident until it's been vetted by Katie.
I don't know who Kate is.
Katie is city clerk.
Okay.
So Katie, you're
you're
our
Katie.
first stop, and
I'm not
then
committed.
Oh, you're not.
Katie is our first. I
Oh,
know I've met her, and I didn't have the face.
Yeah,
of her name.
she's the power of all.
She will generally, when she gets it, she vests them and she'll, if it's something that affects the police department. It'll go to whoever it's sent to, but she'll make sure I get a copy of it and say, do you have something you would recommend as a response?
Yep.
So it sounds like after, sort of letting the board see it, maybe even at the same time, send it to Katie to say,
No,
Who
send it
else?
to Katie, and then Katie can tell you how to handle it.
oh,
Well,
but
I don't want to
I-
agree with that. I think that this board has to play its role to be responsive and not wait for someone else to tell us what we should respond.
Depending on the type of question. If someone is questioning because I got a jaywalking ticket because that's Dale's business. That's not the community engagement board business. But all depends what type of question they're gonna give. That's,
I
if
agree.
it's something about the community board trying to be involved in some community event, yes, this board can do that. But I just want to caution that, you just don't want to get in an area that stay in your lane.
I'm with you on that. I'm not sure I'd be on board with everything we get always goes to Katie first, because not everything requires immediate response. It could be we would decide, hey, this ought to be on the agenda for the next meeting, where Katie wouldn't tell me to tell us to do that. So I agree with you. It depends on the topic.
Right.
But part of it is that some things hopefully will be things that we can talk about more.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Katie can, what she'll do, which I got 2 emails this morning. Ever since came in from a client, from a citizen, they're looking for an answer. So I knew exactly, it was for me to answer. So she did vet it and just said, okay, it's nothing for the city manager or the assistant city manager or the police or whatever. So I just caution you, just not to get involved too deeply with that, not
Right.
trying to put a crap on this committee, but it could, you just want to make sure you cross all your T's, dot your I's.
Yeah, I think when we think about kind of in this thing that the automatic responses, if it's not something we can expressly respond to, then we should say to them, this is not our, PCB business, so we'll forward
We'll forward
you
to
to
the
the
right
person
place.
Yeah.
who it should be answered by. And all other things, I agree, we should be able to manage ourselves to an extent.
And we, to my understanding, we always CC Katie on everything anyway, right? So.
That's my 2 cents.
I can understand, so I'll.
Once I think about this, we almost really couldn't use that form without having the email, because how do we respond to questions if they provide an email? We really must do it from the PCB email account. Yeah, I feel good about that. I wanted it to feel authentically transparent, and this feels that way to me. Let's see. So we've talked about the review process. I suspect we might get a question at some point that'll cause us to do some more introspection and thinking about our own purpose and objectives, but anyway, what was the other thing that I highlighted? We covered it all.
Sure, more past time. I think.
We said about the email and about the process for approval. Oh, about what process do we want for reviewing this copy? Would you all like some time to look at it and get back and offer edits? Where do we go from here?
I mean, I don't know if this is too much, but I personally trust your committee's wordsmithing. And I don't, and I feel like I have the, I have more than just the bones of what you want to do. So I feel comfortable if you guys want to move forward, rather than having to do another email and reading through and a stamp of approval. I don't know. What does everybody else do?
Yeah, I think you did great work here, and it's a major step forward already from where we've been, and I agree with Katie that we're fine just to move forward. I don't see any particular aspect here that I wouldn't agree with. Hasn't been what we've been talking about for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's gonna evolve potentially over the next year and a half or whatever, that we get more action on this email account, we get more forms, and then we're doing more public things, and we're talking more about it and producing content, and then this kind of just continues to grow. So
And
3
we
years, so
can-
3 years from now, you've got something to be behind for the next quarter.
We can make changes to how the process of it as we get more experience and know, and
Yeah.
hopefully don't make any mistakes that are too scary.
Yeah, it's kind of open source, and just constantly
Right.
freshening it up.
We'll just have to have some redundancy to make sure that we're checking that email 2-3 times a week if you're out of town, like someone else does, just make sure that we've got that continuously looked at, tracked,
Yeah.
and that may drive what's reasonable and how much time we need to respond. They'll probably check every single day, but twice a week, 3 times a week, and we can adjust that too, but that'll be important. So if someone does it, like you're saying, just left hanging for 4 days, like, well,
Right.
where's my answer?
I would anticipate that I will be on that email. And have access to it, so I mean, if I look at emails every day, unless you have an issue with it, I don't have a problem looking at it every day, and there's something on there I think needs to be attention, whoever the chair is, or it's sitting there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I'm sure they're gonna use Outlook, and Outlook has tools where it'll automatically send it to whoever you want automatic at the same time. Gee,
I think
Sure.
Tanner might have something. There's a cat, little red thing.
So good catch.
It might be
Yeah.
Tanner Brown.
See, sir.
click on the,
She's so
I'm the
patient.
one.
there you go.
There we are.
Angela.
Oh, she has to log off.
Oh, yeah.
Teacher.
Parent teacher conference.
She's already
Yeah.
gone. We had
history for
such a
me.
great conversation the other night. It was really helpful that, or before I gotten to this point to flesh it out.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks, communication subcommittee. Okay, ordinance compliance, any?
No news.
No news,
Yeah.
okay.
But again, we need to reach out to Jenny about the format.
Yes,
And then by next, we'll definitely set the goal by next time. Having a list of what we have to do to comply. And some scheduled dates about it. So I just have to go with Kevin.
all right. He's probably got it all figured out,
I'll still
right?
talk.
The education subcommittee is Centron and Paul and myself, and I think that we had an email exchange, but kind of the couple of things that had come up at the last meeting was this. Kind of education piece about officer wellness, and then I was actually going to talk to you about, you had mentioned there was a compassion fatigue and first responder study that was done at Webster. I just didn't know if you had,
Oh, I was listening after, but I thought. no. Yeah.
if that's possible
Yeah,
to
yeah,
like,
yes.
to have them come present to us next time, that would be great. Okay, and then and that's sort of where we're at for the remainder of 2022. And certainly if you guys, on your own, if you think that, gosh, here's some education I think our group would benefit from, feel free to email us and brainstorm, but we're on it too. So, and then our last item is Public Safety Day coming up this Saturday, which I don't even know. I feel like I dropped the ball on it. Kevin said he can attend. I don't. There's this Saturday, October 29th from 10 to 1 at the new.
It's at both here and at station #2, firehouse #2. You don't have to be at both places, but there will probably be different people at those places. So it means up to you. And they also asked me, let them know if you wanted a table.
And I know Scott's out of town, and I know I have people coming in from out of town, so I'm not able to attend. You can go.
I can go too. One question I would ask is how will someone know that they're representing the PCEB and sort of what is our
That was our
objective?
budget name tag. We're
Yeah.
gonna do that.
We can also set up a small table if you want, that we have.
I just don't know what attracts someone to that table. Like, what do we?
Stand down in front of them and call.
I think past, I think Kevin's more extroverted, so he'll stand out and he'll go meet people and kind of just handshake and introduce, I'm in the PCB. And if that's your style, I think that is great. And that probably does, it sort of is that community outreach. So I don't know, other than that.
I'm an introvert.
I know, me too.
Or I know small groups. Gosh, I thought I could get rid of you guys. So I'm actually- one of the things, in communications and working with, students that we're doing career prep is we talk about having an elevator pitch. And it's really just a very short statement that you can introduce yourself, and we would, have a common statement of purpose about what the PCEB is. And I don't know if I could tell you what that is. I mean, we could read like from the ordinance, but that's not how people talk.
Right.
And so it feels like it needs to be more accessible. And I'm not volunteering to write something before October 29th, because we wouldn't have time to look at it. But for future events, I think that would be a nice thing to have.
I feel like for this event, I don't think we need a table. I think we can do nothing on the table.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
if we were able to go and show support by going to it and drop again, and maybe we shake a couple of hands and meet a couple officers, just kind of say that, we had a presence there, and then we can look forward to another event where we've got something more written down.
I would love that. And it gives us kind of the shape of the situation for future times. And then if whoever attends would like to email the board and just say, or summarize, this is what this is what we did. This is how it,
Like Kevin did after
Yeah.
the
yeah.
school.
Yeah, so that would be great. So I should reach out. Dale, I should reach out to can't remember who was,
Jason Samuels actually kind of ramrodding it all, but if you want, you can let me know, or
Okay.
Captain Spear. He's
Okay.
gonna be there, but Flannery's kind of organized it all.
okay,
What time again? Did you say?
10 AM to 1 PM.
Do we want to coordinate if there's two different locations, so we don't all go to the same one, or,
I'm on the fence. I'm not sure when I'll be available, so I just,
yeah, you're just gonna be a drop
I'll
in.
just shop around.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then Kevin, isn't here tonight, but he's available on email and we can find out, so.
We've got a
let's see.
couple days to figure
Yeah,
that out.
okay.
Yeah.
You're flexible, I am
Okay,
too.
so maybe on email to just kind of.
So let me, okay, Cintron, John, Kevin, Lexi. And
Maybe.
maybe.
You don't have to commit to any time, just I'll let them know who it is that's going to be there at what.
It's here at this place.
Well, we're doing it here at City, Firehouse and the police department. There'll be officers giving tours of the police department, but then there will also
That's fine.
be some officers down at Firehouse number 2. They're
So it's
both-
firehouse number 2 in the
And
police
here.
department here.
Representing.
Yeah, it's up on the roads.
All right,
And I see a little Google sign up.
and then I think we talked about this last time, our next meeting. Is not the week of Thanksgiving, we decided, which it would normally be. But on Tuesday, the 29th of November, and that will be our last meeting for the year. And I'm sorry to say I won't be here because I have my colonoscopy first one that day.
There are easier ways to get a meeting.
It's just what you wanted to know.
Won't be here on the 29th, but that's not a problem. Have somebody sit in for me.
Okay,
I do have a couple of announcements if I can,
okay,
whenever you're ready.
I am ready.
Good. I just want to give you a couple of updates on city council. We have a subcommittee working on the boards and commissions charter, boards and commissions. Trying to get a onboarding process for every new commission or board member. Our charter review board, this is their second meeting, last past Monday, so they're getting ready to start reviewing the charter and hashing that out with them. So they're pretty much was in the organization phase, but now they're starting to start reviewing. Also, we just had our second, we had our strategic planning meeting, actually a subcommittee meeting right here from 4 to 6 today. And the council's meeting on the 5th of November for a second meeting for the strategic planning. Trying to get our mission, vision, values, and set some goals. And then also the charter review board, I refuse to call it crap anymore. So, for the charter review board, they are going to go through some DEI training. So that's through Gloria Hicks from Hicks, Carter and Hicks firm. So I've been able to get you guys roped into that training. So,
Wow.
just as soon as we hear, it won't be until next year, because she's tied up until January, I believe. So as soon as we get those dates and stuff from her, we'll let you know. We're actually going to really try to be bold and get all of the commissions into that training. So, but like she said, budget is one thing, so. But the purpose of her meeting with the charter review board is to how to draft policies and procedures and things of that nature with the DEI lens. And that pretty much follows with you guys too. How do you make changes or either look at what you have to do through a DEI lens? So, but anyhow, so we was able to get that done. So,
Great, thank you. Thank
hey,
you.
well, that's about your budget.
That's wonderful. All right, I think we're done unless you all have anything else you want to add or share? Okay, well, thank you for your time. And do I have a motion to close this meeting? Adjourn.
I'm motion to adjourn.
Okay. Have a second? Scott, all right, thank you all. Have a great November.
Everybody's calling us.
It's just, well, I mean,
May
you
your
turn
prep be
50.
easy.
you have to choose. I know.
Yes.